Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the New Seoul, watching the stars through the main window. His ship had been traveling for 3 months, exploring the far edges of space that humans had never seen before. The mission was simple: find new worlds and see what was out there. "Captain," called Commander Park Nari from her station, "I'm getting strange readings ahead. Multiple ships, but they don't look like anything we've built." Hyun walked over to look at her screen. The radar showed at least 6 large objects moving in formation. They were much bigger than any human ship and had shapes that seemed impossible. Some looked like giant insects, others like flowing water. "Are they moving toward us?" Hyun asked. "Yes, sir. And they're sending some kind of signal. It's not in any language our computers know." Hyun felt his heart beat faster. This was it. First contact with alien life. Everything they had dreamed about and feared was happening right now. "Put it on speaker," he said. Strange sounds filled the bridge. It was like music mixed with animal noises and machine beeps. Then suddenly, the sounds changed and became words they could understand. "Unknown vessel, you will stop and prepare for boarding. State your species and purpose." Hyun looked at Park Nari. She nodded and pressed the communication button. "This is Captain Lee Hyun of the human exploration ship New Seoul. We come in peace. We're exploring this area of space." There was a long silence. Then different voices started talking at once, all in languages the humans couldn't understand. Finally, one voice came back. "Did you say human? We have no record of this species. You will come with us." The alien ships surrounded the New Seoul. Up close, they were even stranger. One looked like a giant metal snake. Another seemed to be made of living crystal. Hyun had never imagined that life could take such different forms. A beam of light shot from the largest ship and grabbed the New Seoul. Hyun felt the ship being pulled forward, but he told his crew to stay calm. "Let them take us," he said. "We came here to meet new life. This is what we wanted." The New Seoul was pulled into a massive space station. It was so big that their ship looked like a tiny toy inside it. As they landed, Hyun could see hundreds of different types of alien ships. Some had crews that looked like giant bugs. Others had beings made of gas or liquid. "Sir," Park Nari said quietly, "I'm reading thousands of different life signs. There are so many different species here." 2 hours later, Hyun and Park Nari were sitting in a huge room across from 3 alien beings. The first one looked like a tall lizard wearing fancy clothes. It had introduced itself as Ambassador Kolthara. The second was like a giant ant with 4 arms called General Vex Mora. The third was harder to look at because it seemed to be made of moving water with a face that kept changing. "So," said Kolthara in a voice that sounded bored, "you claim to be from a species we have never heard of. How is this possible?" "We're from a planet called Earth," Hyun explained. "We only started traveling to other stars about 50 years ago. This is our first time coming this far from home." The 3 aliens looked at each other. General Vex Mora made a sound like clicking insects. 50 years, it said. "We have been traveling space for thousands of years. Your species must be very primitive." "We're still learning," Park Nari said politely. "But we're fast learners." Kolthara laughed, which sounded like a snake hissing. "Fast learners, how cute. Tell me, little humans, do you know anything about war?" "We've had wars on our planet," Hyun said carefully. "Why do you ask?" "Because," said the water being, "we are in the middle of the greatest war in galactic history. For 200 years, the Galactic Confederation has been fighting the Vorthak Empire. Billions have died. Entire star systems have been destroyed." Hyun felt shocked. A war lasting 200 years was beyond anything humans had ever experienced. "That sounds terrible," he said. "Is there anything we can do to help?" All 3 aliens stared at him for a moment. Then they started laughing. Kolthara laughed so hard it had to hold its stomach. General Veximora's clicking became so loud it hurt their ears. "Help?" Kolthara finally said. "You? You've been in space for 50 years and you want to help us fight a war." "The Vorthak Empire has weapons that can destroy planets," General Vex Mora added. "They have ships the size of cities. They have been fighting us for longer than your entire civilization has existed." "We understand we're new to this," Hyun said, trying to stay calm even though he felt embarrassed. "But maybe a fresh perspective could be useful. Sometimes outsiders can see things that others miss." The water being made a sound like waves crashing. "A fresh perspective? From primitives who just learned to leave their home planet? Look," Kolthara said, suddenly seeming almost kind. "We appreciate that you want to help. It's very sweet. But this war is beyond anything your little minds could understand. We have species that have been fighting wars since before your planet even had life on it. Hyun exchanged a look with Park Nari. He could see she was thinking the same thing he was. These aliens were treating them like children. Could we at least observe? He asked. Maybe learn about how galactic warfare works. We promise we won't get in the way. The three aliens talked among themselves in their own languages. Finally, Kolthara turned back to them. Very well. We will show you what real warfare looks like. Perhaps it will help you understand your place in the galaxy. General Vexmora leaned forward. But understand this, humans. War in space is not like the little fights you have on your single planet. Ships here can destroy stars. Battles involve millions of vessels. Warriors train for centuries to master weapons you cannot even imagine. We will take you to observe the battle at Kepler Nebula, the water being said. You will see what happens when civilized species fight. Try not to be too frightened. As they were led away, Hyun heard the aliens talking behind them. He couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. They thought humans were a joke. Just primitive creatures who didn't belong in the real galaxy. Park Nari walked beside him quietly until they were alone in their guest quarters. Sir, she said, did you notice something strange about their weapons and ships? What do you mean? The technology we saw. It's impressive, but it's not that much more advanced than ours. Different, yes. Bigger, definitely, but not necessarily better. Hyun nodded slowly. He had noticed the same thing. For species that had been in space for thousands of years, their technology seemed almost old-fashioned. Let's keep our eyes open tomorrow, he said. Maybe we'll learn something they don't expect us to learn. General Oh-min stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive Confederation space station. Behind him, 10 more human ships were docking. Word had traveled fast through human space about the Galactic War, and Earth had decided to send their best military minds to help. Welcome, General, said Dr. Kim Jae, who had been waiting at the docking bay. How was the journey? Long but worth it, General Oh-min replied. He was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. I've been reading your reports. These aliens fight like they're still using swords and shields. Dr. Shin Hai, the expedition's xenopsychologist, joined them. She had arrived on the same ship as the general. It's more complex than that, she said. Each species has fighting traditions that go back thousands of years. They're not stupid, they're just stuck in their ways. Stuck in ways that are losing them a war. General Oh-min said grimly. They were escorted to the council chamber, where the most important leaders of the Galactic Confederation were waiting. At the center of the room sat Council Elder Mordak, an ancient being that looked like a giant crystal formation. Light moved through its body like thoughts made visible. Around the table were dozens of alien representatives. Dr. Kim pointed them out quietly to General Oh-min, Admiral Zephron, who had become surprisingly supportive of human ideas, General Vexmora, who still thought humans were primitives, and Ambassador Kolthara, who seemed curious but skeptical. So, Elder Mordak said in a voice like wind chimes, these are the humans who think they can solve our war. General Oh-min bowed respectfully. We don't think we can solve your war, Elder, but we believe we might be able to offer some new perspectives. New perspectives, General Vexmora clicked dismissively. From a species that has never fought a real space war. That's exactly why our perspective might be valuable, Dr. Shinhai said calmly. Sometimes being outside a problem helps you see solutions that those inside it cannot. Commander Bae-uk, who had been standing silently behind the general, stepped forward. He was younger than General Oh-min but carried himself like a coiled spring ready to release. May I demonstrate something? He asked. The aliens looked puzzled but curious. Elder Mordak's light pattern shifted in what might have been agreement. Commander Bae-uk walked to an open area of the chamber. General Vexmora, you said we've never fought a real space war. That's true, but we've fought wars for thousands of years on our planet. He began to move, showing martial arts forms that flowed like water but struck like lightning. The aliens watched in fascination as he demonstrated how humans could fight without weapons, using speed, timing, and leverage to overcome larger opponents. This is called adaptation, Commander Bae-uk explained as he moved. When your enemy is stronger, you don't meet force with force. You use their strength against them. When they're faster, you become unpredictable. When they expect one thing, you do another. He stopped and faced the assembled aliens. "We saw your last battle. Both sides knew exactly what the other would do. That's not war anymore, it's a dance of death. And what would you do differently?" Ambassador Kolthara asked, genuinely curious now. General Omin activated a holographic display that showed the recent battle at Kepler Nebula. "First, we would never use such predictable formations. Look here." He pointed to the Confederation fleet. "Your ships move in perfect lines. Beautiful, but it tells your enemy exactly where you'll be. Formations exist for good reasons," General Vexmora protested. "They allow for coordinated attacks and mutual support." "Coordination, yes," Dr. Shinhai agreed. "But coordination doesn't require identical movement. On Earth, we learned that the best military units work together while moving independently." She showed them videos from human history. Fighter pilots working as teams while each following different flight paths. Ground troops advancing together but using varied tactics. Naval battles where ships supported each other without forming rigid lines. "Fascinating," Elder Mordak said, its lights pulsing faster. "But how would this work with our technology?" Dr. Kim Jae stepped forward with technical specifications. "Your technology is actually very good, but you're using it in limited ways. Your shields, for example, only work on single frequencies. You could modify them to shift frequencies randomly, making them much harder to penetrate. And your weapons," added Lieutenant Choi Wan, who had been taking detailed scans. "They're powerful but inflexible. You could program them to change targeting patterns mid-flight, making them nearly impossible to dodge." General Omin brought up another display showing Vorthak battle formations. "Your enemies have the same problems you do. They're predictable because they've been fighting the same way for so long, but that predictability could be their weakness." "Explain," Admiral Zephron said, leaning forward with interest. "If you know your enemy will always do the same thing, you can prepare traps," Commander Bayuk said. "Make them think you're following your old patterns, then suddenly change tactics when they're committed to their response." Dr. Shinhai pulled up psychological profiles she had compiled from studying battle records. "The Vorthak commanders show classic signs of overconfidence. They expect you to react in certain ways because you always have. This makes them vulnerable to surprise attacks." "Surprise attacks?" General Vexmora's antennae twitched. "We are not assassins. We fight with honor." "Honor doesn't require stupidity," General Omin said bluntly. "There's nothing dishonorable about winning a war with fewer casualties on both sides." Elder Mordak was quiet for a long moment, its lights cycling through complex patterns. Finally it spoke. "These ideas are disturbing. They challenge everything we know about proper warfare. Sometimes challenging what we know is how we learn," Dr. Shinhei said gently. "But the risks," Ambassador Kolthara said. "If we change our tactics and they fail, we could lose entire fleets." "You're already losing entire fleets," Dr. Kim pointed out. "Last month alone you lost more ships than Earth has ever built." Admiral Zephron made a bubbling sound that might have been laughter. "The human is right. Our current tactics are proven failures. Maybe it's time to try some unproven successes." General Omin sensed an opening. "We don't suggest changing everything at once. Let us prove these concepts work on a small scale first." "What do you propose?" Elder Mordak asked. "Give us one system to defend," Commander Bayuk said. "Somewhere the Vorthak are planning to attack. Let us show you how human tactics work in practice." The aliens talked among themselves in their various languages. The discussion grew heated at times, with several species clearly opposed to the idea. Finally, General Vexmora spoke up. "Very well. The Tau Ceti system is scheduled for evacuation next week. The Vorthak are massing a large fleet to take it. If you think your tactics are so superior, you can try to defend it." There was something in the alien general's tone that made Dr. Shinhai suspicious. She had studied alien psychology enough to recognize when someone was setting up what they thought would be a failure. "We accept," General Omin said calmly, "but we'll need some of your ships to work with us. Our tactics require integrated forces." "Of course," Ambassador Kolthara said smoothly. "We'll assign you a full battle group. The survivors can report back on how well human tactics work in real combat." As the meeting ended and the humans were escorted to their quarters, Dr. Shinhei spoke quietly to General Omin. "Sir, I think they're expecting us to fail. This might be their way of getting rid of the primitive human problem, while making it look like they gave us a chance." General Omin smiled grimly. "I had the same thought. Which means we can't just win at Tau Ceti. We have to win so decisively that no one can dismiss it as luck. Commander Bayuk cracked his knuckles. Then we'd better make sure we bring enough surprises to the party. Dr. Kim looked at the tactical data they'd been given about Tau Ceti. The good news is that the Vorthak fleet heading there is large but typical. They'll use standard attack patterns. And the bad news? Dr. Shinhei asked. We're outnumbered 10-1, fighting with alien ships we've never used before, alongside crews who think we're crazy. General Omin looked out at the stars, already planning the impossible victory they would need to achieve. Well, he said, no one ever said changing the galaxy would be easy. Admiral Ryu Da stood on the bridge of the modified Confederation flagship, watching the Vorthak fleet approach Tau Ceti. Through the view screen, she could see nearly 200 black warships moving in perfect formation toward their position. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Impressive, she said calmly. They really want this system. Major Lim Kang, coordinating the ground defenses, appeared on the communication screen. Admiral, we've got confirmation that Warlord Graktor himself is commanding their fleet. He's their best tactical commander. Good, Admiral Ryu Da replied, surprising everyone on the bridge. If we're going to prove human tactics work, we might as well do it against their best. The Confederation aliens working alongside the humans still looked nervous. They had never fought a battle using human strategies before, and everything felt wrong to them. Instead of neat formations, the human fleet was scattered across the system in what looked like random patterns. Captain Namgil's voice came through the communications from his stealth ship. Admiral, I'm in position behind their command vessel. Their communication channels are wide open. They're not even trying to encrypt their signals. Because they've never needed to, Admiral Ryu Da realized. The Confederation has always fought the same way, so the Vorthak know exactly what to expect. They think this will be just another standard battle. On the tactical display, the Vorthak fleet was arranging itself in a classic attack formation, 3 massive command ships in the center, surrounded by concentric rings of smaller vessels. It was textbook perfect and completely predictable. All units, prepare for Operation Flowing Water, Admiral Ryu Da announced. The human-designed battle plan had confused the alien crew members when they first heard it. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, they would flow around them like water around rocks, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the Vorthak could respond. Enemy fleet is beginning their attack run, reported the Zilani navigator. They're targeting our defensive stations first, just like always. Let them, Admiral Ryu Da said. Namgil, begin electronic warfare protocols. From his hidden position, Captain Namgil activated systems the Vorthak had never encountered before. Human cyber warfare techniques began infiltrating their communication networks, not to cause damage, but to listen and learn their command patterns. Admiral, Namgil reported, I'm inside their network. Warlord Graktor is ordering a standard planetary bombardment followed by ground assault. He's dividing his fleet into 3 attack groups exactly like the tactical manuals predict. Perfect, Admiral Ryu Da smiled. All units execute Flowing Water Phase 1. Instead of forming defensive lines, the human-led ships began to move in seemingly chaotic patterns. To the Vorthak, it looked like panic and confusion. To the humans, it was a carefully choreographed dance. The first Vorthak attack group came in expecting to face traditional Confederation shields and weapons. Instead, they found ships that moved unpredictably, with shields that shifted frequencies every few seconds, making them nearly impossible to target effectively. Their weapons are missing us, called out the insectoid gunner in amazement. How are we doing this? Adaptive movement patterns, explained Dr. Kim Jae, who was monitoring the battle from the command center. Instead of flying in straight lines, we're using random evasion protocols. Their targeting computers can't lock onto us. The first phase of the battle lasted only 20 minutes, but in that time, the human tactics proved devastating. The Vorthak lost 30 ships while the human-led forces lost only 3. More importantly, the Vorthak were becoming confused and frustrated. Major Lim Kang's voice crackled over the communications from the planet's surface. Admiral, their ground forces are landing, but they're using the same old tactics. My integrated alien-human units are ready. On the planet below, Major Lim Kang had done something unprecedented. Instead of keeping each alien species in separate units, he had mixed them together with human soldiers, creating teams that combine different strengths and abilities. Remember, he told his mixed species units, the Vorthak expect each species to fight in their traditional way. We're going to give them something they've never seen before. The Vorthak ground forces landed in perfect formation, expecting to face predictable resistance. Instead, they found themselves fighting units that seemed to know exactly where they would strike next. Aquatic soldiers attacked from underground water systems while insectoid troops provided air support, all coordinated by human tactical networks. Back in space, Admiral Ryuda was preparing for the battle's turning point. All ships prepare for Phase 2. Nam Gil. It's time to introduce them to psychological warfare. Captain Nam Gil grinned as he activated the next part of their plan. Suddenly, every Vorthak communication channel was flooded with something they had never heard before. Human music. Heavy metal, classical symphonies, and traditional Korean drums echoed through their ships. But that wasn't all. Mixed with the music were human battle cries in dozens of languages, recordings of human warriors from throughout history shouting their defiance at enemies. The Vorthak, who were used to the quiet efficiency of Confederation communications, found the noise deeply unsettling. What is this chaos? Warlord Graktor's voice could be heard screaming over their intercepted communications. Stop this noise. It's called rock and roll, Admiral Ryuda said to no one in particular. Let's see how they like it. The psychological impact was immediate. Vorthak ships began making mistakes, breaking formation to escape the noise attacks. Their precise tactical coordination started to fall apart. Now, Admiral Ryuda commanded, all units execute Flowing Water Phase 3. The scattered human ships suddenly converged on the confused Vorthak fleet, but not in the way any galactic military manual had ever described. Instead of massive ship-to-ship combat, they swarmed like angry bees, hitting multiple targets simultaneously before disappearing back into the chaos. Human fighters, much smaller than typical galactic vessels, proved nearly impossible for Vorthak weapons to track. They moved like earthbirds in a flock, each one independent but part of a larger pattern that seemed to have its own intelligence. This is impossible, came Warlord Graktor's voice over the intercepted channels. They fight like madmen. There's no pattern, no logic. Dr. Kim Jae smiled from his monitoring station. Actually, there's a great deal of logic. It's just not logic they understand. The battle turned into a rout. Vorthak ships, designed to fight enemies who followed predictable patterns, found themselves unable to cope with constant surprises. Their weapons couldn't target ships that moved randomly. Their tactics fell apart when faced with enemies who changed their behavior every few minutes. Major Lim Kang's ground forces were having similar success. His mixed species units were using alien abilities in combinations the Vorthak had never encountered. When the enemy expected water-based attacks from aquatic troops, they got insectoid airstrikes instead. When they prepared for insectoid tactics, they faced human stealth and alien technology working together. Admiral, Captain Nam Gil reported from inside the enemy network. Warlord Graktor is ordering a retreat, but their ships are so confused they're not sure how to disengage safely. Then let's help them, Admiral Ryuda said. All units open corridors for enemy withdrawal. Let them run, but make sure they know they're running. The final phase of the battle was almost anticlimactic. The Vorthak fleet, which had started with nearly 200 ships, limped away with fewer than 60. They had faced something completely outside their experience and had been utterly defeated by an enemy they had outnumbered 10 to 1. As the last Vorthak ship disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Ryuda's communication board lit up with messages from across the galaxy. Word of the impossible victory was spreading fast. Admiral, her communication officer reported, we're getting messages from Confederation Command, from the Council, from fleets across the galaxy. Everyone wants to know how we did it. Major Lim Kang appeared on the screen from the planet's surface, grinning broadly. Admiral, the Vorthak ground forces surrendered an hour ago. They said they'd rather be prisoners than face any more human magic. Dr. Kim Jae was already analyzing the battle data. The casualties are remarkable, he said. We lost 12 ships and about 300 personnel. The Vorthak lost over 140 ships and thousands of troops. Admiral Ryuda looked out at the stars where the Vorthak fleet had fled. Somewhere out there, Warlord Graktor was trying to explain to his superiors how he had suffered the worst defeat in Vorthak military history. Send a message to all Confederation forces, she ordered. Tell them that the defense of Tau Ceti was successful, and tell them that human tactical doctrine is now available for integration into all fleet operations. Captain Namgil's stealth ship appeared on the main screen as it decloaked near the flagship. Admiral, he said, "I've been monitoring Vorthak communications during their retreat. They're calling us the Chaos Warriors and the Unpredictable Ones. Some of their commanders are refusing to engage human forces until they can study our tactics." "Good," Admiral Ruda replied. "Let them study. By the time they figure out what we did here, we'll be doing something completely different." President Yang Su stepped off her shuttle onto the grand platform of the Galactic Council station. Behind her, the most impressive sight the galaxy had ever seen slowly came into view: the Earth fleet. 300 ships of completely new design, each one incorporating lessons learned from the Tau Ceti victory. Magnificent, breathed Ambassador Kolthara, who had come to welcome the human delegation. The lizard-like diplomat looked very different from their first meeting. Gone was the condescending tone, replaced by genuine respect and perhaps a little fear. Fleet Admiral Ko Jin followed President Yang Su onto the platform. He was a quiet man who seemed to carry the weight of the entire galaxy's attention without effort. Word of human military genius had spread through every star system, and everyone wanted to meet the species that had revolutionized warfare. "President Yang Su," came a melodious voice from behind them. They turned to see Empress Sylvana herself, the supreme leader of the Galactic Confederation. She was a tall, elegant being with crystalline skin that reflected light in beautiful patterns. "Your Majesty," President Yang Su bowed respectfully. "Thank you for inviting us to these talks." "Thank us?" Empress Sylvana laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "President Yang Su, your people have given us hope for the first time in 2 centuries. We should be thanking you." As they walked through the station's corridors, President Yang Su could see the change in how aliens looked at humans. Before Tau Ceti, they had been curious outsiders. Now, alien beings of every description stopped to stare respectfully as the human delegation passed. The main council chamber was packed with representatives from thousands of worlds. At the center sat the traditional Confederation leadership. But President Yang Su noticed something new. Several empty seats had been prepared at the high table, clearly meant for the human delegation. Elder Mordak's crystal form pulsed with warm light as the humans entered. "President Yang Su, Fleet Admiral Ko Jin, welcome. Please take your places at the leadership table." As they sat down, President Yang Su looked around the room. Every alien face was turned toward them with expressions of hope, curiosity, and respect. It was a far cry from the laughter that had greeted Captain Lee Hyun's offer to help just months before. "The situation has changed dramatically since our last meeting," Empress Sylvana announced to the assembly. "Thanks to human tactical innovations, we have won 17 major battles in the past month. The Vorthak Empire is retreating on all fronts." A cheer went up from the assembled delegates. Species that had been losing the war for generations suddenly saw victory as possible. Fleet Admiral Ko Jin stood to address the council. "Your Majesty, honored delegates, we're honored by your trust. But we didn't come here just to win battles. We came to end this war." "End the war?" General Vex Mora asked. The insectoid general had become one of humanity's strongest supporters after seeing their tactics work firsthand. "Do you mean total victory over the Vorthak?" "No," President Yang Su said, surprising everyone. "We mean peace." The council chamber fell silent. After 200 years of warfare, the idea of actual peace seemed almost impossible to imagine. Fleet Admiral Ko Jin activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. "Our analysts have been studying both sides of this conflict. The Vorthak Empire isn't inherently evil. They're just another collection of species trying to survive and prosper. They started this war." Ambassador Kolthara protested. "According to Confederation records," President Yang Su acknowledged. "But we've also intercepted Vorthak communications. According to their records, the Confederation started it. After 200 years, does it really matter who threw the first punch?" Dr. Shin Hei, who had been analyzing psychological profiles of both sides, stepped forward. "What matters is that both civilizations are trapped in a cycle of violence they don't know how to break. The war has become their normal state of existence." Elder Mordak's lights flickered in patterns that suggested deep thought. "What are you proposing, humans?" Fleet Admiral Ko Jin smiled. We're proposing something that's never been tried before in galactic history. Direct negotiation with the Vorthak leadership. Not surrender demands or victory terms, but actual peace talks. The reaction was immediate and loud. Half the delegates were shocked, a quarter were angry, and the rest seemed intrigued by the audacity of the idea. The Vorthak don't negotiate, General Vexmora declared. They only understand strength. Actually, Fleet Admiral Ko Jin said calmly, they've been trying to contact us directly for the past week. The chamber fell silent again. President Yang Su stood up and activated another display showing intercepted Vorthak transmissions. War Prime Korthax, the supreme leader of the Vorthak Empire, has sent us several messages, she announced. He wants to meet with human representatives to discuss what he calls new possibilities for galactic stability. It's a trap, someone called out from the audience. Dr. Shin Hai shook her head. Our psychological analysis suggests otherwise. The Vorthak leadership is genuinely confused and frightened by human tactics. They've realized that continuing this war against an enemy they can't predict or counter could lead to their complete destruction. Empress Silvana leaned forward in her throne. And you believe they would honor a peace agreement? We believe they would honor an agreement that benefits everyone, President Yang Su replied. And we have something to offer that would benefit the entire galaxy. Fleet Admiral Ko Jin activated one final display, showing images that made the entire assembly gasp. Green worlds, blue oceans, growing cities where before there had been only wasteland. Terraforming technology, he announced. Humans have perfected the ability to restore dead worlds to life. We can repair the damage that 2 centuries of war have caused. The implications hit the Council like a thunderbolt. Thousands of worlds had been destroyed or damaged in the war. The ability to restore them would be worth more than any military victory. This is what we propose, President Yang Su continued. A 3-way alliance. The Confederation, the Vorthak Empire, and the Human Republic, working together to rebuild what has been destroyed and explore what lies beyond our current borders. And if the Vorthak refuse? Elder Mordak asked. Fleet Admiral Ko Jin's expression became serious. Then we continue the war, but with human leadership and human tactics. Based on our projections, the war would be over within 6 months, but millions more would die unnecessarily. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some delegates argued for continued warfare until total victory. Others worried about trusting the Vorthak. But gradually, the idea of peace began to take hold. Finally, Empress Silvana called for order. We will vote, she announced. All in favor of authorizing President Yang Su to negotiate with the Vorthak Empire? The vote was closer than President Yang Su had hoped, but it passed. The Galactic Confederation was officially authorizing peace talks for the first time in 2 centuries. 3 days later, President Yang Su found herself in the strangest meeting of her life. The neutral space station where the talks were held had been hastily constructed by all 3 sides working together. Human engineers had designed it, Confederation workers had built it, and Vorthak ships were providing security. War Prime Korthax was not what she had expected. Instead of a monster, she found herself facing a being that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, with intelligent eyes that seemed tired of war. President Yang Su, he said in heavily accented but clear human language, your species has accomplished something remarkable. You have made us afraid. That wasn't our goal, she replied honestly. No, but it was necessary, War Prime Korthax continued. For 200 years this war has been predictable. We knew we could never completely defeat the Confederation, and they knew they could never completely defeat us. The war had become comfortable. Fleet Admiral Ko Jin, who was sitting beside President Yang Su, leaned forward. And now? Now everything has changed, War Prime Korthax admitted. Your tactics have made it clear that the old ways of fighting are obsolete. If we continue this war, the side with humans will win completely. The negotiations took 2 weeks, but the final agreement was simpler than anyone had expected. All 3 civilizations would work together to explore and colonize new galaxies, sharing technology and resources. War-damaged worlds would be restored using human terraforming technology. Most importantly, a joint military academy would be established where all species could learn the new adaptive tactics that humans had pioneered. President Yang Su stood before a joint assembly of all 3 civilizations as the peace treaty was signed. Representatives from thousands of worlds watched as the longest war in galactic history officially came to an end. Today, she said, we begin a new chapter in galactic history. Not as conquerors or conquered, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, discovering what lies beyond the stars we know. Fleet Admiral Ko Jin looked out at the mixed crowd of former enemies now working together and smiled. Human diplomatic ships were already traveling to both Confederation and Vorthak worlds, establishing the cultural exchange programs that would help the galaxy heal from centuries of war. In the months that followed, the Terran Strategic Institute became the most prestigious military academy in the galaxy. Dr. Kim Jae floated in the observation deck of the Confederation flagship, watching the most incredible sight he had ever seen. Thousands of alien ships spread across space like a metal ocean. Some were as small as the New Sol, others were the size of mountains. The battle at Kepler Nebula was about to begin. Amazing, whispered Lieutenant Choi Wan beside him. She was holding a small device that was secretly recording everything they saw. Look at the size of that command ship. The Confederation fleet stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Dr. Kim counted at least 40 different ship designs, each belonging to a different alien species. Some looked like sea creatures, others like geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. The Vorthak fleet is approaching, announced Admiral Zephyron, the aquatic commander of this battle group. His voice bubbled through a water-filled helmet. Humans, you are about to witness true space warfare. Captain Yoon Soo, the third human observer, was standing near the tactical display. She watched as red dots appeared on the screen marking enemy ships. How many Vorthak ships are there? She asked. 2,000, maybe more. Admiral Zephyron replied. They always outnumber us, but we have better shields and stronger weapons. Dr. Kim watched carefully as both fleets moved toward each other. The Confederation ships formed neat rows like soldiers marching. Each species stayed in its own group, moving in predictable patterns. Sir, Choi Wan said quietly to Dr. Kim, are you seeing what I'm seeing? The formations? He whispered back. Yes, they're very organized. Too organized, Dr. Kim thought. The alien ships moved like they were following a textbook. Every maneuver was clean and proper, but there was no creativity, no surprises. The battle began with a spectacular light show. Energy beams crossed space in every color imaginable. Missiles that looked like flying stars streaked between the fleets. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, but as Dr. Kim watched, he started to notice problems. The Confederation ships all raised their shields at exactly the same time. They fired their weapons in perfect sequence. When one group moved left, another group moved right, like they were dancing a dance they had practiced for centuries. The Vorthak ships, strange black vessels that looked like flying fortresses, were doing the same thing. They had their own patterns, their own dance. Both sides knew exactly what the other would do. Lieutenant, Dr. Kim said to Choi Wan, can you scan their shield technology? Choi Wan aimed her device at the nearest Confederation ship. Her eyes widened as she read the results. Sir, their shields are powerful, but they're single frequency. If you knew the right frequency, you could punch right through them. And their weapons? Energy-based, very strong, but they only fire in straight lines. No guided missiles, no smart weapons. Dr. Kim watched a group of Confederation ships get destroyed when they failed to break formation, even though breaking formation would have saved them. They died because their tactics manual said to stay in line. This is not how humans would fight, Captain Yoon Soo said, joining their quiet conversation. No, Dr. Kim agreed. We would adapt. Change tactics mid-battle. Use different weapons for different situations. The battle lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, both sides had lost hundreds of ships. The Confederation claimed victory because they held the nebula. But Dr. Kim could see that Admiral Zephyron was not happy. Another victory, the Admiral said sadly, but we lost the third battle group completely, and the 7th Fleet took heavy damage. You won, though, Choi Wan said. Did we? Admiral Zephyron's large eyes looked tired. We've been winning battles like this for 200 years. But we keep losing ships, losing worlds, losing people. The Vorthak just keep coming. That evening, the humans were given access to the fleet's battle records. Dr. Kim spent hours studying the data, while Choi Wan analyzed the technology they had observed. This is incredible, she said. Their computers are less advanced than ours. Their weapons are powerful but inflexible, and their tactics haven't changed in decades, Dr. Kim finished. Look at this battle record from 50 years ago. They used exactly the same formations, the same strategies. Captain Yunsu was reading reports from other battles. It's the same everywhere. The war has become a routine. Both sides know what the other will do, so every battle is like a ritual they perform over and over. But why don't they change? Choi Wan asked. Dr. Kim pointed to a section in the records. Because they've been doing this for so long, they think this is the only way to fight in space. Each species has its traditional battle methods. They've never had to adapt because they've never faced anything truly different. The next day, Admiral Zephyron invited the humans to a strategy meeting. Around a huge table sat representatives from 12 different species. Some breathed water, others needed special gas to survive. One looked like a living tree, another like a cloud of glowing particles. The situation is getting worse, Admiral Zephyron announced. Last week we lost 3 star systems. The Vorthak are pushing us back on all fronts. A creature that looked like a giant praying mantis clicked its mandibles. Perhaps we should request more ships from the core worlds. More ships using the same tactics that keep failing, grumbled a rock-like being. We need better weapons. The weapons are not the problem, said Admiral Zephyron. The Vorthak have the same level of technology we do. They just have more ships, Dr. Kim raised his hand. May I ask a question? The aliens looked at him with amusement. They had almost forgotten the humans were there. When was the last time you tried completely different tactics? He asked. Different tactics? The mantis creature seemed confused. We use the tactics that have been proven over centuries of warfare. But if they're not working against the Vorthak, maybe it's time to try something new. The rock being made a sound like grinding stone. Young human, we have been fighting wars since before your species existed. We know what works, but do you? Captain Yunsu asked. You've been fighting the same enemy for 200 years and you're losing. Maybe what worked before doesn't work now. There was an uncomfortable silence. Admiral Zephyron's gill slits fluttered nervously. What would you suggest? He asked quietly. Dr. Kim stood up. On Earth we learned that the army that adapts fastest usually wins. Fixed tactics work until your enemy learns to counter them. Then you need to change. Impossible, the mantis creature declared. Battle formations exist for good reasons. You cannot just change them. Why not? Choi Wan asked. If a formation isn't working, shouldn't you try a different one? The aliens looked at each other with expressions that ranged from confusion to annoyance. It was clear that the idea of changing their ancient battle methods was almost impossible for them to imagine. Admiral Zephyron was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. These humans ask uncomfortable questions, he said. But perhaps uncomfortable questions are what we need. That night, Admiral Zephyron visited the humans privately in their quarters. Tell me honestly, he said. What do you think of our chances in this war? Dr. Kim hesitated, then decided to be truthful. Admiral, if you keep fighting the way you're fighting now, you're going to lose. The Vorthak have more ships and more worlds. In a war of attrition with no tactical changes, numbers win. Admiral Zephyron's shoulders sagged. That is what I feared you would say. But what can we do? We are what we are. We fight as our ancestors fought. Maybe that's the problem, Captain Yunsu said gently. Maybe it's time to fight as your descendants might fight, with new ideas. Admiral Zephyron stared out at the stars for a long time. Would you be willing to share your ideas with our military leaders? He finally asked. If they're willing to listen? Dr. Kim replied. Oh, they'll listen, Admiral Zephyron said with something that might have been a smile. Because if they don't, we're all going to die.